ABC Action News is keeping you informed this election year. We're offering candidates in the major races 5 minutes to talk about the issues. Here's Brendan with tonight's Democracy 2010 profile.
Joining me now on Democracy 2010 is the Republican nominee for governor, Rick Scott. We've got about 5 minutes to cover some issues. Thanks for being here, Mr. Scott.
Great.
Let's start by having you, if you can, sort of briefly illustrate your education plan, which you announced just recently. It calls for expanded vouchers for private schools and other special schools. Can you give us a thumbnail sketch?
The whole focus is going to be on kids. How do we make sure our kids and every child, as we know, can learn? We're going to make sure every child, has access to the best schools, the best teachers, and the best, they have a choice. So first off, we're going to make sure the teachers are measured based on achievement. It's got to be fair to teachers. Our second daughter teaches special needs kids, so they have to be measured a little bit differently. But we're going to test the measurement of children. We're going to make sure our parents have choices in schools. As we know in any other industry, competition makes people better. Same thing happens in education. And we're going to make sure we move to the 21st century. We're going to use as much technology as possible, not just have kids sitting in classrooms all day long.
This is connected to some $2 billion in corporate and property tax cuts that you aim to make. You also sort of pledged to hold the schools harmless, or at least not reduce their budget. That's a big difference to make up. You say you're going to do it with waste in government. Can you give me a specific example of a wasteful program that you would attack that would meaningfully offset those tax cuts you want to make?
Well, first off, I'm going to look at every program, but in particular, as I've crossed the state, I've talked to people about DCA in particular. People are worried to death about how much paperwork there is there and the delays and things like that. So we'll go back and look at DCA and say, what was the original purpose of that? And as we do that, we'll be able to downsize that some. There's 50 state lobbyists. Right? I mean, they lobby. They work for the government. We pay for them, and they're lobbying the legislature for more money. There's some ways we can save money.
Okay, you're certainly aware of Florida's First District Court of Appeals that lobbied for a new courthouse. It's a $48 million building that's being called the Taj Mahal. It's also being called kind of an insult to taxpayers in this time of budget crisis. It happened. The money was appropriated, approved under the watch of the Senate Republican nominee, Marco Rubio, who I presume you support in that race. Nobody's come forward on the Republican side to take responsibility or acknowledge any wrongdoing with respect to approving this sort of sumptuous public building. If you were elected governor, what would you do about it? Would you prevent the justices from moving into that building? What would you do to address at least the unhappiness that people feel about that kind of spending?
Sure. Unfortunately, the money is spent. So there's nothing you can do about it now.
The building's not finished yet. Nobody's moved in.
Yeah, but my understanding is pretty much finished. And so the money's pretty much spent. What I'm going to do is as governor, I'm going to go back and run the state like you run your household or you run your business. You're going to say, how do we spend our money? Watch every penny. We know there's no free money. There's no government money that we don't have to pay back somehow. So I'll look at every penny. I'll make sure we reduce regulation, but we're going to get rid of the waste in government.
One of your major spending issues that you talked about is the Department of Corrections, the prison system. Your goal is to cut $1 billion from their budget, which is only about $2.4 billion, so that's more than a third, nearly in half, by cutting salaries and health care costs, and also by raising the amount of food that they actually raise right there on the premises. The former corrections chief says that's just not realistic. That just cannot be done. You can't cut $1 billion from them and keep the public safe from prisoners.
Every program that we've put out, every place we've looked at how we can save money, we've said we'll benchmark to another state. And we haven't benchmarked to the lowest cost state, but we've benchmarked to other states. Other states do have the prisoners raise their food. Other states look at how they can do less expensively, have lower health care costs in their prisons. So everything we've put out, everything I've put out, it has a benchmark to what other states have done. That's how you do business. You benchmark and you find best practices. You find people who do it better, and you compare yourself and you figure out how to do it better.
So you think you could still cut $1 billion off that budget?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But look, we have great employees in the corrections department. All right. That's not where we're going to save the money. We're going to save money in management. We're going to save money in having them raise part of their own food, things like that. Outsource the health services better. Things like that.
All right, we're out of time. Thank you very much, Rick Scott, for joining us on Democracy 2010. Rick Scott is the Republican nominee for governor, facing Democrat Alex Sink in the November 2nd general election.